Hello everyone, my name is Rahman Saputra. I'm an ME student at Sampurna University, cohort 2022, and today I'm going to be explaining the 3-point bending test, which is the fifth test of the MOM lab. Moving on to the introduction session, where I'm going to be explaining the whole concept of the 3-point bending test. So a 3-point bending test is a mechanical test that measures the flexural properties of a material. In this case, the specimen is a beam, by applying force to the center of the beam, supported on two ends. So this beam will be supported on its two ends, so it will be clamped fixed, and the test is used to determine the beam's materials properties, such as the Young's modulus, the deflection. Also, we can get the stress and strain of the beam itself. Therefore, we can determine the material of the beam using this test. Moving on to the data processing and module question session, where I'm going to be giving a walkthrough about how to process the data that is gotten from the experiment and answering the module questions. Moving on to the dimension data session. So as I've mentioned before, we're going to be having a beam as our specimen, and our first job is to measure that beam. So the parts of the beam that is going to be measured involve the length of the beam, which has dimension of 82.7 centimeter, width of the beam with 6.4 centimeters of dimension, height of the beam with the dimension of 2.5 centimeters, the support length, the total support length from A to B is 71 centimeter, and the support A to B midpoint basically 71 centimeter divided by 2, which results in 35.5 centimeters. So before we're moving on to analyzing the experimental data results that we got from the experiment, the deflection data, I'm going to be explaining the overview of how the 3-point bending test machine actually works. So basically it uses a hydraulic system, which you can usually find in car jack. So as can be seen, there's a lever that you can push up and down, and when we push that lever down, it will gradually increase the pressure that is given to the beam up and up and up. So we start to record the deflection at 300 psi, and for each 50 psi increment, so if there's a 50 psi increase in the psi, we record the deflection again, and we repeat that until it reaches 1200 psi. Not only that, we actually need to repeat that process 3 times so that we get the average deflection in millimeter and meter. So in order to record the deflection happens to the beam due to the pressure increasing, we're going to be using a device called the dial gauge, which basically used to in structural testing and engineering applications to detect small displacements. So basically, before the experiment, we're going to be installing this device below the beam, exactly below the beam, and it's going to be calibrated to 0. And as the beam is going down because of the pressure, it will record the displacement or the deflection that happens to the beam, as can be seen on the picture. Yeah, and here's the other data of deflections that we've recorded. So in this section, I'm going to be explaining about the 3-point bending test and the 4-point bending test, explaining about the differences between the two tests in terms of the FBD, SFD, and BMD, and how the loads are basically applied to the beam and such. So for 3-point bending test, the specimen, the beam here, is being applied a load P in the center of the beam, and for each end it is supported by a reaction force by support. Here I make it a triangle basically. So whereas the 4-point bending test, there are 2 forces acting on the beam, and same as the 3-point bending test, it is being held up by a support on each end, different from the 3-point bending test where the load is applied on the middle. Here in the 4-point bending test, the 2 loads are evenly distributed. So per 1/3 length of the beam, there is a force acting on it. So moving on to the FBD part. So for the 3-point bending test, as can be seen on the left, if we do the equilibrium analysis, such as sigma m at point A equals 0 and the sigma f vertical force equals 0, we're going to be obtaining the reaction force at A and the reaction force at B. We have the same magnitudes, which is the P over 2, which is half of the applied force. And for the 4-point bending test, as can be seen from the naked eye, we can already tell that the reaction force and the reaction at A and B will be having the same force as the applied force, as the applied one, which is the P. because the distance is basically the same and the total of forces going up and down is the same. So after getting the reaction forces through FBT, we can now construct the SFD and BMD of 3-point and 4-point bending test. So for the 3-point bending test shear force diagram, it starts off with the reaction force RYA, which is half of the applied load. So the applied is 1 kN and the reaction will be 500 Newton going up, and there will be a load in the center of the beam, applied load P, going down by 1 kN, become minus 500 Newton, and it goes along until it meets the reaction force B, which is going up at half P, which is 500 Newton, and it ends up at 0. Moving on to the 4-point bending test shear force diagram. So all the 4 loads will have the same magnitude, which is P, which is 1 kN. So I start off with the reaction force A, 1000 Newton going up, and then the external load P going down by 1000. Again, the external load will have 4-point bending test will have 2 external loads P, so basically 1000 Newton going down again, and lastly we'll have the reaction force B, which is 1000 Newton going up, and it ends up at 0. So for the BMD of the 3-point and the 4-point bending test, basically dependent on the SFD. So basically for the 3-point bending test, the SFD will have 2 areas. The first length, the half length of the beam is going to have a positive, and the half length of the beam will have a negative area of SFD. And as can be seen from the BMD, the slope of the graph is basically going up until 5 meters, and then it's going down. As for the 4-point bending test bending moment diagram, as can be seen from the SFD, the first area is positive, so the slope of the BMD will go up. However, the SFD from 3,3 until 6,6 meter, it's basically 0. So for the BMD, it will have a straight line, and for the 6,6 meter until 10, it will have negative area, and the BMD will go down, and it ends up on 0 at 0. So in the model for question 4, we are asked to plot the load versus deflection graph from the data obtained from the experiment. So we're plotting the average result, and based on that plot, we are asked to explain and describe the material behavior of the graph, whether it is in plastic or in plastic deformation region. So as the result of the graph is giving me a linear relationship between the load and the deflection over the range shown, this suggests that the material is in elastic deformation region, where it still follows the Hooke's law and will likely to return to its original shape when the load is removed, so it has not entered the plastic deformation stage. So for the 5th question, we are asked to compare our experimental data of deflection and compare it to the theoretical deflection data of a steel beam with a Young's modulus of 200 GPa. So basically, we first need to calculate the theoretical deflection using the Young's modulus of 200 GPa and compare it to the average experimental data that we get from the lab. So as can be seen here, to quickly calculate the theoretical data, we can use MATLAB. Here's the code. First of all, we define the load in Newton, basically making an array of those load values. And E as Young's modulus, we have 200 times 10 to the power of 9 Pascal, or 200 GPa. With the moment of inertia I've calculated prior to this, we get 8,3 times 10 to the power of minus 8 with the length of the beam, which is 0,71 meters, and basically using a for loop to get the calculation done. After we have done calculating the theoretical deflection of a 200 GPa steel beam, we need to calculate the percentage error by comparing it to our deflection data that we get from the experiment, as can be seen from the table. So if we plot the percentage error, as can be seen from the table's most right column cell, we can get the graph figure, such can be seen below the MATLAB code. So from that figure of graph, we can tell that there's a huge deviation that happens early at the deflection data. So let's say from the 1st until the 7th experiment, basically the result that we get from the experiment is deviating when compared to the theoretical. Basically deviates until 337% of error, and it starts to decrease and starts to be accurate at around the 10th experiment until the end, which has an approximate error of only 40 to 20%. While the percentage error is considerably high, we can get that the result of the Young's modulus later is considerably accurate when compared to the 200 GPa. So for the sixth question, or the last question, we are asked to obtain the value of the slope of the load versus average deflection graph, which is going to be the P over deflection value, that then we can insert that value to get the Young's modulus, which has a formula of P over deflection, which is 2418,5 times L to the power of 3 over 48 times the moment of inertia. So from this formula, we can get the Young's modulus of our beam, which turns out to be 216,4 GPa. So as the beam is made from steel and has an expected value of Young's modulus of 200 GPa, we can now calculate the percentage of error that we get. So since we get 216.4 GPa, it deviates around 8.2% from the expected value, which is 200 GPa. So that's it from me. Thank you.